evaluator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, as it has been said, our theme was the old settlements in Europe between 1.5 and 0.5 million years ago in different contexts: volcanic, open air, and karstic. So the settling of Europe is one of the main problems that we deal with today, because we have so few sites with good context, with a good archaeological record that has been preserved. And so what we see is actually a sporadic settlement, and some stages have been recognized from paleoanthropological and archaeological records. So the first phase of hominin occupation would be as early as 1.4, and it seems to be only restricted to the southern part of the continent. We don't have dates that are nearly as far way back as that in the northern part of the continent. But then the second phase, that is characterized with mode two lithic industry, with the Chilean industries, and the emergence of Homo heidelbergensis, seems to be more spread out in Europe. So initially, two models of the colonization of Europe were proposed. The first one was one that stated that Europe was not occupied before 500,000 years ago. But then more recently, alternative models came up that defended a settlement that would be prior to that. In the second group, there would be, let's say, two main statements. One would be that the settlement of Europe occurred around 1 million years ago, they called the mature Europe, but others postulated that it would actually be a more ancient settlement, previous even to 1.5 million years ago, which is the old Europe. Just one side note, in terms of settlement, we chose the approach that defining settlement would be a constant anthropic activity, and that is and not just let's say a vestigious human activity. So a settlement would be something that would actually leave a great mark on the archaeological context. So the objectives of our work were to determine the age of the oldest settlement in the European fossil record, and also to discuss the implications of combining several approaches to understanding the timing of disappearance, because since the contexts from the different sites are also geologically different, and the remains present are also different, not one methodology was possible to use. Therefore, different dating methods had to be undertaken to get somewhat a clearer view on this issue. So that brings me to the methodology. Our own methodology was basically to compile the data of all these projects from all these different sites, but I will talk about more specifically of the methodology used on these sites. And firstly, I'll talk about the dating methods. And the absolute dating methods were mainly four dating methods used for the different contexts. The first method is the argon-argon method. It is something usually the potassium argon method was the one that was used, but this one has more recently been used with more reliable results than the potassium argon, and it basically is used on volcanic context to date the formation of crystals in volcanic environments. The ESR method, which means electron spin resonance method, is used to date the last time that a crystal was exposed to natural radiation, and that can be quartz crystals, but also can be used on teeth from large mammals. But this method might have some limits, or might have some some constrictions because of the radiation of the environment, and that's why on some sites when teeth were used, they used the ESR uranium series method, which takes into account the uranium radiation uptake from that teeth. That means that they also had to take a sample from the tooth enamel, but also from the sediments in which the teeth were deposited, because otherwise the radiation uptake on the teeth would alter the results of a simple ESR dating method. And then lastly, the ESR-OB method, which is the ESR method applied to optically bleached quartz. The optically bleaching quartz also may eliminate some constrictions that would alter the ESR calculations. Of course, that for comparison the terms with the archaeological and fossil data of these sites, they were compared to the current stratigraphical and biostratigraphical data. So basically, to the datings, the results of the datings were compared to the industries that were found at the sites, but also to the faunal evidences that would give us some clues on also polyenvironmental variation and polyclimatic, and to make a close link between the fossil record and, for example, the marine isotope stages, and then also to correlate the two. And that is, I think that is, oh yeah, and then for each site, these were the samples collected. So at Isernia, they used the cyanidine crystals, 30 from each layer, to apply the argon method. At the site of Grandolina, they used 39 sediment samples using optically bleached quartz that was then dated with the ESR method. At Conlahago, 16 mammal teeth with the ESR uranium series. As I told before, this is the most correct method now to apply to tooth animal, and then to the Northwest Europe, that is actually comprises 17 different sites. There were 46 sediment samples of use and 14 teeth, using the ESR for the sediments and the ESRU for the teeth of great mammals. And that is it for my methodology. And I go, oh yeah, and then the application of these combined approaches will allow us to see some evidence of the old settlements in Europe, because different contexts require different methodologies to apply. And now it's results and discussion. I don't know if Santiago wants me to pass on the slides, or if he wants to share it from his own screen. Santiago, are you there?
Yes, I am, because now I think that you have to stop sharing the screen, and then I can.
Okay. So I can stop sharing the screen, and you share from your own?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm stop presenting.
I think that I'm not allowed to share my screen, but I think it's not a problem. Could you, Alexandra? If you can, I can see you.
It's strange, because normally everybody is allowed. You have a Mac?
In this way, I think not.
Well, if Alexander can share, and after you will tell to him when to change, okay?
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Can you all see it now?
Yeah, the next.
Okay, Santiago, then you just tell me when you want to just say next, and I will skip the slides.
Perfect, Alexander. Thank you. Okay, so firstly, in the next slide, Alexandra, if you can. So we're going to present our results. Firstly, we have said that the southern deposits, firstly, represented by Largo, Isernia, and Grandolina, have resulted in a chronological framework between 900,000 and 500,000. In this big group of sites, Grandolina TD6 shows the oldest boundary with 947,000. Okay. On the other hand, if we look to the northern sites, the 13 northern sites that we study, as Lanoira, Pakefield, or Warren Hill, show more recent chronologies, that is between 750,000 and 500,000. So in this sense, in the north, the Abbeville Carrière Carpentier site shows the oldest chronology 7,700, even if its error range is very large. Okay, in the next. If we start to discuss our results, we know that we realize that materials can be an important variable in the dating process. For example, in the Sanidane's case of Isernia, that gave a high resolution dating. But before to treat the antiquity the antiquity of the European occupation, we make clear that we focus on sites that present repeated human occupation and not only isolated human remains, as for example Barranco León. Well, in general, in this sense, we check that there are two waves in the European occupation, in the Lower Pleistocene and in the Middle Pleistocene. Both waves are related to warm and stable condition during MIS 13-15 and MIS 17-25, according basically with articles like Agustí et al. 2009. In this way, the northern latitudes represented in this work by French and English sites started to be occupied by the second wave around 700 and 500,000. Okay, and the last. So, make some conclusions. We can say that Europe was firstly occupied by humans during the Lower Pleistocene around 1.3 and 1.9 million years, only the south. The second, that if you look to the chronologies of the site, we can conclude that Europe suffered two different waves of population. That two waves of populations have archaeological and environmental data that connected them with warm and stable climate conditions. And last, the south, we can say that the south was probably occupied than the north, with a chronological mark between 700,000 years ago and 500,000 years ago, when the entire continent was populated. Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very well organized presentation. So if you can exit from the presentation so we can see all each other. Okay, I think that for the questions, Christophe can start.
Okay, you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so first I would like to thank the students for the presentation and for the manuscript that they sent. It is not. It is a very wide topic, huh? And I must say that the manuscript was made like a scientific paper. So it was very well built, but I should say that some mistakes are written. For instance, and I understand that you want to make pleasure to Marta, but Isernia la Pineta is not 1 million years old. So, Marta? But okay, so it is not so important.
I really don't care about the age of Isernia.
I would like to mention the debate on which you built your topics. The debate of are European sites older than 0.5 million years old is a little bit old. It is more than 25 years ago. Since recently, there is another debate that you forgot to mention, concerning the Jaramillo paleomagnetic event. So I was hoping, I was expected more this kind of debate. Are the European sites older than Jaramillo or not? But okay. The other weakness in your work, it seems that you forgot to mention a very important site, which is Dmanisi site. So maybe you consider as French geographers that the Caucasus is not in Europe, but it is the starting point of the story of the settlements in Eurasia, 1.8 million years old. So I was expected that you will mention this site. For the rest of the work, I think that you made a very good work, and I took pleasure to read your work, which is written like a paper, a scientific paper. So thank you very much. I have no question.
Thank you, Christophe. Do you want to say something?
Yes.
Francois.
Okay. Yes. Why did you discard, of course, several chronologies? Christophe mentioned about the magnetic chronology. Sometimes biochronology is also important. And I have an Italian colleague excavating in a site, and she's still waiting for absolute dating, but she relies mostly on biochronology in order to propose an age for the first wave of migration in southern Italy. Can you elaborate a bit on such topics? One of you.
Yeah, of course, you can choose who can answer. Maybe the one who have not talked until now, or even Santiago or Alexandra, it's the same. So who wants to answer?
I could answer that question.
Okay, thank you, Alexander.
So the methodology of our work and with the main materials that were given to us were of absolute datings of the archaeological sites, and so I mean an absolute date, like it says, it's an absolute number, and so therefore it is the most, let's say, most reliable source of information in terms of dating these sites, and that's why we took and compiled that information of absolute datings. But like I mentioned, the relative datings, they were used for comparisons to see if the results given were coherent with the layers. Of course, other methods like paleomagnetism and biostratigraphy, and also the presence of archaeological materials gives us an idea of the coherence of some of the dates, but and so therefore they may be more well balisé. I'm not sure the word in English, but so that's why we focused on those. Also because let's say the four main articles to use in this work were of absolute datings, but yes, biostratigraphy was one of the comparative methods that was constantly referenced on each of the articles, and when it was possible to make comments on the coherence of some of the dates. I think I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. I've also a question, but it's a little bit general. As we have a lot of sites that are very well dated by radiometric, with recent datation and so on, and some other that are dated on more vague way, like, for example, biochronology, that give us a very well succession of events, but not really a specific point. But when we are reading the publication that we, as prehistorical archaeologists, we are doing, at the end, all these kind of datation are mixed. So when we are talking, for example, about first European poppling, we have not problems in saying Pont de Lavaux, Pirro Nord, Elefante, and so on. But we are really comparing different method of datation and also different accuracy of the dates. So do you think, in your opinion, and you can express your, more than one of you can express his opinion, do you think that this is a good way to proceed because it's the only one that we had, or that in publication we must be more careful in comparing the different dates? Thank you. So who wants to answer? I think you can also all answer, because it's a subjective opinion. I know already the one of Christophe, so I don't need to hear for it. So who wants to start? Hey. Miriam, Mario.
This is not an easy question, huh?
You are not allowed to answer. So, who wants to break the ice?
I can say two things. But I will keep it short as possible because I have already answered.
Okay.
I think one of the main issues of archaeological science is bias, because we do not have we have a disadvantage in comparison to other hard sciences, because we cannot have like other sciences function with repetitive experimentation, and we cannot excavate the same site twice. We cannot excavate the same layer twice. So as soon as we excavate, we have lost the ability to have that experiment again, that experience again. And so, yeah. So the first point I would make is that archaeology is unfortunately a very biased science, because excavation is a bias in itself. And so if every excavation has its own bias, when you combine and try to compare them, whatever it is, even if it's objects or dating methods or the presence or geoarchaeology and geomorphology, it's kind of a mess. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done, or that there is no way to progress in it. There is way to progress, but I think it's a much more skeptical path, I would say. And that would be my answer, I guess.
Thank you, Alexandre. So the other component of the group want to add something? We want to hear your voices. And now you are used to a camera, because it's 3 months that we are just working with cameras. Okay, so if nobody... thank you, Santiago, please.
Okay, I think in base that you said, I think it's a necessity to compare different type of methods in the same site. But I think, for example, that is normally is difficult to find the material that is needed to this kind of methods, and normally you send it and it's wrong, and the error is so large. And at the end, even if you want to compare different kind of methods, at the end you are constrained to one or two, for example. Other thing is to be quantitatively representative your samples, for example, to take more than one or more than two.
Thank you, Santiago. So if Miriam, Mario, Miss Metu don't want to add something, there is a question from Julie.
Hello, hello everybody. Thank you for your presentation, which was really clear. And I have small questions related to methodological aspect that maybe the other that has not have not talked yet can answer to the question. You said at the discussion part, I think, or conclusion, I don't remember, that reading all the paper that we have sent to you, that there is error ranges related to the nature of the material that has been studied. And I wanted to know, as the title of your presentation regard also the typology of sites, if reading all the paper, there is also an error related to the typology of site, open air, caves, etc., etc. The results are different in terms of range of the range of datation.
Sorry, I didn't understand the complete question because it was cut. So can you repeat?
I will shorten the question. So the question was that reading all this paper, which were about different typology of sites, so there were open air site and cave site, if in the results each time with different methods, if there are differences also in the range of the results in correspondence to the typology of sites.
So if vegetation is influenced by the result of vegetation is influenced by the typology of the site.
Thank you, Martha.
Christophe now know how to answer, but they will have to.
Yeah, I can speak.
No, we wait if they want to answer. Mario, you want to answer?
Yes, it's of course it depends on the itself taphonomy or sedimentology processes that affect to the sedimentology of the stratigraphy or the sedimentology of the sites, and also to the materials. So if we, for example, have an open air site where climatic processes affects not only maybe the micromorphology or the sedimentology of the site, but also even the materials. You can have a bias. I don't know if it's a correct word. A bias that can allow you to apply a dating method to a material or a particle or a sediment. That, for example, on a karstic site may give to you, because the karstic sites usually how do you say it conserves better the materials, the stratigraphy, the sedimentology of the own site. So I think that in the karstic sites it's easier to yes, for some dating methods to obtain clear results and approximately and good results.
It's a pity that you didn't write what you just said, because it's a good answer. Because I think that you made a little confusion concerning the error range. The error range has nothing to do with the material. There is two things. First, the sampling. The sampling is essential in the dating processes, but the error range has nothing to do with the sampling. This is a combination of chemistry and apparatus, the error range. Okay? So of course, when you use argon method, the error range will be very small. And ESR, because ESR takes into account a lot of parameters, so the error range will be greater. But it was a little confusion in your text, I guess. It's a pity that you didn't write what you said